Marcus Thompson's heart stopped the moment he recognized her. There she was, Victoria Caldwell, the ice-cold executive director of Horizon Financial Group, the woman who had made his last 6 months a living nightmare. Standing alone on the deserted stretch of Malibu Beach at sunset, tears streaming down her face as she stared at the ocean. But it wasn't just the tears that froze him in place. It was what she held clutched against her chest. A small wooden box and a faded photograph that even from 30 feet away, he could see she was gripping like a lifeline. In that single shattering moment, the woman who had terrorized an entire office building, who had fired 3 people in 1 week without blinking, who had rejected his promotion request with a dismissive wave of her hand, looked utterly broken. And Marcus, despite every reason to walk away, despite every cruel word she'd ever spoken to him, found himself unable to move. If you believe in the power of compassion, in second chances, and in the truth that everyone carries hidden battles we know nothing about, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us. Marcus had come to this particular stretch of beach because it was where his father used to take him as a child, back before cancer had stolen him away 10 years ago. It was his place of peace, his sanctuary when the world became too heavy. He certainly never expected to find his boss here, miles away from the corporate towers of downtown Los Angeles, looking like a completely different person. Victoria always wore perfectly tailored suits, her dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, her expression carved from marble. She spoke in clipped sentences, demanded perfection, accepted no excuses, and seemed to take particular pleasure in dismantling Marcus's confidence piece by piece during their weekly progress meetings. Just last Friday, she had called him into her office and told him his work was adequate at best, that his presentation to the board had been embarrassing, and that if he wanted any future at Horizon Financial, he needed to decide whether he was serious about his career or just collecting a paycheck. Her words had cut deep, especially because Marcus had poured his heart into that presentation. He had worked 16-hour days for 3 weeks, had sacrificed time with his daughter Sophia, had pushed himself to the breaking point trying to prove himself worthy of the senior analyst position. And Victoria had dismissed it all with cold indifference. Now, watching her on this beach, watching her shoulders shake with silent sobs, Marcus felt something unexpected stir in his chest. He should have turned around and left. She would be mortified if she knew he had seen her like this. But something in the way she held that photograph, something in the raw grief emanating from her, kept his feet planted in the sand. His mother had always told him that hurting people hurt people, that cruelty often came from a place of unbearable pain. He had never fully understood what she meant until this moment. Marcus took a tentative step forward, then another. The sound of his footsteps in the sand must have reached her because Victoria suddenly turned, and her expression transformed in an instant from vulnerability to shock to horror. She quickly wiped her face, straightening her spine, trying desperately to reconstruct the armor she always wore. But her red-rimmed eyes and the trembling of her hands betrayed her. Marcus stopped several feet away, his hands raised slightly in a gesture of peace. He spoke softly, carefully, the way one might approach a wounded animal. He told her he didn't mean to intrude, that he was just walking and hadn't expected to see anyone he knew. He started to say he would leave, but then he paused. Something in her expression stopped him, a flicker of something that looked almost like relief beneath the fear and embarrassment. So instead, he asked if she was all right, knowing it was perhaps the most foolish question he could ask given the obvious answer. Victoria stood frozen for what felt like an eternity, her jaw tight, clearly warring with herself about whether to unleash her professional fury or simply flee. But then something in her seemed to crumble. Her shoulders sagged, and she looked down at the photograph in her hands with such profound sadness that Marcus felt his own throat tighten. When she finally spoke, her voice was nothing like the sharp, commanding tone he knew from the office. It was small, broken, almost childlike. She told him the date, November 17th, and said it marked 7 years since she lost her son. The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. He had worked under Victoria for 6 months and had never known, had never even heard a whisper of this tragedy. She explained, her words coming in halting fragments, that Noah had been only 8 years old, that it had been a car accident on a rainy Tuesday morning, that she had been driving him to school when a truck ran a red light. She had survived with minor injuries. Noah had not. The wooden box she held contained some of his ashes. She came to this beach every year on this day because it had been Noah's favorite place in the world, where they had built sand castles and searched for seashells, and where he had laughed with pure, uncomplicated joy. Marcus felt tears burning in his own eyes. He thought about his daughter Sophia, about how he couldn't imagine surviving the loss of her, about how such grief would destroy him from the inside out. He understood suddenly and with crystal clarity that Victoria's coldness was not cruelty but self-preservation, that she had built walls so high and so thick because the alternative was drowning in an ocean of loss. He took another step closer and told her he was sorry, that no parent should ever have to endure such pain, that he couldn't imagine her strength to even wake up each morning and face the world. Something in his words seemed to break through whatever remained of Victoria's defenses. She sank down onto the sand, and Marcus found himself sitting beside her without consciously deciding to do so. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. And then Victoria began to talk. She told him about Noah, about his obsession with dinosaurs and his terrible jokes, and his habit of leaving notes around the house telling her he loved her. She told Marcus that after the accident, she had thrown herself into work because it was the only thing that kept her from falling apart completely. That being demanding and difficult meant she didn't have to feel, didn't have to remember, didn't have to acknowledge the gaping hole in her life. She turned to Marcus then, and with startling vulnerability, she apologized. She said she knew she had been unfair to him, that she had seen in his presentation something that terrified her, genuine passion and heart, and that she had tried to crush it because she couldn't bear to be reminded of what it felt like to care that deeply about anything. She told him his work had actually been exceptional, that the board had been impressed, that she had denied his promotion, not because he didn't deserve it, but because some twisted part of her resented his ability to still have hope. Marcus sat absorbing her words, understanding blooming in his chest like a sunrise. He told Victoria about his own father, about watching cancer slowly steal away the strongest man he had ever known, about how grief had nearly destroyed him too. He shared that what had saved him was choosing to honor his father's memory by living fully, by being present for his daughter, by trying to be the kind of man his father had taught him to be. He suggested gently that perhaps Noah would want his mother to live too. Not just survive, but actually live. To find moments of joy again without guilt. They talked for over 2 hours on that beach. 2 people who had been adversaries becoming something else entirely. 2 wounded souls recognizing their reflection in each other. When they finally stood to leave, Victoria did something Marcus would never have predicted in 1,000 years. She hugged him, a real embrace, and whispered thank you against his shoulder. If this story has touched your heart, if you believe in the transformative power of empathy and understanding, please leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and consider subscribing. Stories like these remind us of our shared humanity. Please comment below and tell us about a time when understanding someone's pain changed your perspective. Monday morning, Marcus arrived at work expecting everything to return to normal, expecting Victoria to retreat behind her walls again. Instead, he found a memo announcing his promotion to senior analyst, along with a personal note from Victoria thanking him for his exceptional work. Over the following months, something remarkable happened at Horizon Financial. Victoria began to change, softening in small but noticeable ways, actually smiling occasionally, taking time to mentor rather than merely criticize. She started a memorial scholarship fund in Noah's name for children interested in paleontology. And Marcus, he learned that sometimes the people who hurt us most are simply drowning in their own pain, that compassion costs nothing but means everything, and that a single moment of choosing kindness over judgment can alter the trajectory of multiple lives. He kept in touch with Victoria beyond their professional relationship, and on each November 17th thereafter, he would send her a simple text letting her know he was thinking of her and Noah. Sometimes the most profound changes in our lives come not from grand gestures, but from the quiet decision to see the humanity in others, even those who seem to have none left to show.